Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hashir Lemki,
My name is Zuhura Slayer.
and today I would like to kind of give you a walkthrough about BAIT 15, the journey during the pandemic and then post-pandemic. Um,
We're going to put
when
up a little presentation.
yes,
Yes.
so just a quick background about like the history of BAIT 15. BAIT 15 was established in 2017 with a group of artists that came together and they felt the need of having um, um, a voice within the eco art system by having an independent studio spaces and gallery space. And the location is downtown Abu Dhabi. The history of the house, it belongs to Al-Janahi family, and Mohammed Al-Janahi was a late famous Emirati actor in the 70s. And then after that, Mohammed Al-Mazroui also used to live and work from that space. So we wanted to maintain a space that had like some sort of a history to kind of like continue this mission that we had in mind. So yeah, and the house consists of like four different artist studio spaces, and then one artist residency space, a library, a multifunctional space that can contain like art shows, music nights, movie screenings, private dinners, group critiques, workshops. So we'll show you all of that during the presentation. And then an outdoor yard that's turning into a dying garden where we cultivate different plants to create natural dyes. Um, we can move to the gallery space images. So you can see this is the living room of the house, and we worked together. It was in-house production where we bought wood, we broke the tiles, we um, installed you know spotlights and turned the living room into a gallery space, white cube gallery space. And we did that ourselves. We were lucky when we started the collective. The two other members actually had Tony Bragg and Chris Mortson had more carpentry skills, and we together built the space. And we tried to maintain some of the features of the actual architecture of the space and kind of work with that. Yeah. And we can move to the next slide. And this is another show. Part of our mission was also important to develop content from the region and show it locally. So all shows, art shows that are being hosted at BAIT 15 are from the community. We don't show our work as members in the space. And in this case, we worked with a family in Dubai, Al Jum'a family. And it's a group of seven sisters and with their kids. We're looking at generational conversation between different art practicing family members. So we hosted that show BAIT 15 during Art Abu Dhabi in 2018, if I'm correct with dates. um, so, and then we also, so that was before the pandemic. And then during the pandemic and a little bit prior to that, we used the gallery space to produce work for our solo shows. So this is a painting that I was working on in the gallery space where we had the exhibition. And then you have also Afra Dhahri, uh, a member. I don't know if, did I mention the BAIT 15 members? Sorry, I forgot.
No,
So,
do a quick BAIT 15 members intro.
yeah, BAIT 15 consists from 4 members at the moment. Afra Dhahri, Metha Abdullah, Zuhur Al-Sayiq, and myself, Hashim Lamki. So also Afra, after I finished my solo show, she used the space to produce work for her solo show. And currently at the moment, Maytha Abdullah is using the gallery space to work on her solo show that is due to open in June, inshallah. So you can see how like the space is active by its both members and community at different stages, and it kind of have this natural ability to adapt to different scenarios. So that's something that we are always looking forward to respond to whatever situation that we are in. Moving on, part of the series of uh, collaborations that we did in the past with Art Abu Dhabi, Art Dubai, and ADMAF here in UAE. We also recently collaborated with the Alchemy of Dying. And now I would like to ask Zuhur to take this part of the presentation.
Yeah. So in mid-February, we collaborated with the Alchemy of Dying to put together a natural dye workshop. This experience started off with spending some time in the plant souk in Mina, exploring things that are native, things that are important, alongside the new plants that we cultivated during the pandemic in our little garden. We experimented, we tried to figure out what would produce color. And this really, I guess, came out of necessity. And I think that a lot of artists moved towards producing with things that we find around us. I think this happened in every sector. It didn't just happen in the arts, it happened in agriculture, it happened across the UAE, and from everything from like holidays to food. We looked around us to get what we need the most. And for me, this meant finding ways to create color in my textiles. And so I spent time in the souk, I spent time in spice markets, trying to figure out what would produce the colors I wanted that I would normally have to import from abroad in the form of synthetic dyes. So after experimenting with this, we then came together with Alchemy of Dying and put together a workshop for a small group of people. Due to the pandemic and our restrictions, it was indeed like a much smaller group than what we were anticipating to host. But I think that allowed us to have a more intimate interaction with the students, and allowed them to be much more involved in the dyeing process than they might have been before. And we got a beautiful natural dye garden out of it that I'm still keeping up with and trying to keep alive. In this image here are some swatches that the students left for us between us and the Alchemy of Dying to keep as research for the different pigments that we used. And it'll hopefully be something that we can then build on in our upcoming workshops that we teach. The most important space for me in the house, and I think Hashim would probably agree with me, is the chill room and the library. I think everything happens in this room. We sit, we talk, we eat, we discuss, we read, and so much comes to life here that pre-pandemic and during the pandemic, it I think held a special place for everyone. Even though we definitely had to look inwards and we became more nuclear, the nuclear members of our communities were still present in the house. And a lot of the times, BAIT 15 members would come in and we would find our community members hosting meetings and just creating life in the space. So that even though everything felt shut and closed, we still had access to our key group of people that brought life to the space and discussions. And I think Kashal and I became very close in the space as I was a resident and he was producing an insane body of work. And we would take moments to breathe here and connect. And after spending so much time in this space and spending so much time with the amazing collection of books, I decided to start stage 1 of our kind of library revamp process. And stage 1 was very basic. I just wanted to make sure that we could see all of the books that BAIT 15 had up. And then we also discovered almost 10 other boxes of books in storage that we'll be kind of dealing with in the next year. And after we get those all up on the wall, there will be a process of documenting them and creating an online database for our books. Because our library was very much donated to us by the community, we feel that making this library accessible to the public as much as possible is very much our duty, to make sure people have access to points of research, points of history that we also have access to, is super important. And I think because of how much time we spent inside and with our books during this pandemic, we realized the importance of that, and hopefully can build on it moving forward. Another thing that came out of the pandemic is the collection we've kind of built. So this is touching on a bit of the history of BAIT 15. This is a piece by Mohammed Ahmed that was actually found in the villa by the members, the original members, when they first moved in. And it stayed in BAIT 15, and it's, I think, the start of an amazing collection that grew as a result of the community members donating their own work, the works that were exhibited, and some stayed, some didn't stay, works that were donated by the residency, by the residents. The next stage of this is, I think, is told beautifully by Ali Al-Awadi, one of our BAIT 15 community members, who painted this piece. You can kind of see it earlier in this small scale on the bookshelf. She brought it to us and we fell in love with it, and we commissioned her to make a bigger painting that would be one of the first commissions by BAIT 15, and hopefully would lead to many more commissions. We felt that she really touched on the little details of the chill room, the little details of coming together in BAIT 15 during the pandemic. And yeah, I hope it grows, and I think it will, along with the library. Hashim, you can talk about the residents.
Thank you, Zuhur. As part of our commitment to continuously engage the community, from the inception of BAIT 15, we thought of the importance of having residency program. And over the course of like 4 years of short existence, we've had different artists locally and internationally. Our first resident was Laura Schneider, American artist who's was based in Abu Dhabi. And then Susan Doe is an American artist who was based in California and came all the way to do this residency. And then Lena and David, they were a result of a residency program in collaboration with Art Dubai 2 years ago, where like was the theme of the fair Latin American artists, and they were trying to uh, give the artists like a local experience. So they were placed in different institutions across the UAE, and BAIT 15 was considered as one of the spaces. Afra Swedi and Ahmed Bouhlega, they are uh, BAIT 15 fans who came and spent some time um, producing new work there. And then that was like before the pandemic. During the pandemic, Tara Degheither and Zuhur Al joined BAIT 15 almost at the same time. And at that point, Tara was working on her research and continuing her residency program at Jamil Art Center, and she needed to be in the region. And now she moved back to Jeddah, and that's where she's continuing her research. And in this case, Zuhur was also a resident during the pandemic, and she reached out to me. I can give a little bit of a story. Like as soon as she had to move back from New York at the peak of the pandemic, and she needed a space to work from. And at that time, I was alone in the space. Producing and trying to process everything happening around us. And I offered her space. And then towards the end of her residency, we both felt her presence have made like a lot of contribution to the collective. And we asked her, would you be interested to join us? Because we had an extra space anyways. And soon after that, we announced that Zuhur now is the fourth member of BAIT 15. Zuhur, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think I came back kind of shocked, but also in the middle of a residency in New York. Um, Obviously, relocating back to Abu Dhabi was always planned for me, but not planned so suddenly and in the time frame that it happened. Um, so I reached out to Hashid because I just needed space to produce work for this residency, and I ended up having this kind of dual residency, critiquing my work with my colleagues in New York, and then coming back and critiquing my work with Hashil and his assistant Al-Meha. And I got this like double whammy, and I think the work I produced, I'm super proud of as a result of that. This is the this piece I produced in the very beginning of the residency. I started it half in New York and then ended up dyeing it here in Abu Dhabi and experimenting with how to place it. I was super grateful for the space and very just super grateful to have somewhere to work. And so I felt like I could give back a bit. And so I spent some time in the garden. I painted the walls. I hung out and cleaned the library and the kitchen. And those things all came very naturally to me. I spoke about programming with Hashid. We kept talking about, yeah, when things clear up in a month, and that never happened. But we have now an amazing storage of ideas for when things clear up post-pandemic. I think things felt very natural, and I think Hashid would probably agree with this. Like, I don't see myself being anywhere else, and also I'm so grateful to the community I kind of fell into here at BAIT 15. So I think, one of the few good things we got out of the pandemic is this space.
True. I think just to add a little bit about you being part of BAIT 15 and during the pandemic, I think what happened is we started five, and then we became three members, and that was like kind of active at the beginning, and then kind of like plateaued in a way where your presence coming to BAIT 15 during the pandemic really kind of like just, highlighted like few things that they were so obvious, but we needed like new sets of eyes to kind of like highlight things. And I think that's something that, we need to highlight and acknowledge that. Um, Moving to the next slide, uh, we've also now we have a satellite space located on Saadiyat Island. It's a pop-up space that we're trying to figure out how to program it, and how to engage the community and um, the tourists as well, because it's located right next to the Louvre Museum, Abu Dhabi, and it's actually the old construction offices, site offices, and now they clear them up and uh, they give it to us for a temporary period. So, we're starting to engage the community by creating content. We have a resident currently who is occupying one of the spaces. We call them studio spaces. Khayal, who's working on performance and some sculptures. Um,
Yeah, maybe I can speak a bit more on that. I think
yeah,
uh, Khayal is, we do have this, our residency space here in Beit Khamfash now empty as I've relocated um, to a bigger space within the house, but we decided to give Khayal a room in this satellite space because we wanted to see how he would bring it to life and how we could then respond to that. And I think we're very grateful to have been given the space by DCT. Um, and I think Khayal is someone who needed this kind of isolation to produce the music, and he wanted to be somewhere kind of removed from everything to produce the EP that he's producing and the album he's producing, and to develop this kind of dreamlike, I guess, performance that we're working on for after Ramadan. Um, and again, this is activating a space that is completely empty and untouched. Is so new for me, at least, and working with a musician is also extremely new for me. And I think it's something also we can, be grateful for the pandemic for, is getting in touch with Khayal and allowing him to explore his music.
yeah. Yeah, and we look at these like this idea of like pop-up spaces or like satellite spaces are like also a way of like doing our community outreach, where this is a place where maybe dedicated for a bigger library or different sorts of events that could take place here, especially the area that extends outside is a public park. So we're expecting when things, inshallah, go back to normal, there will be more foot traffic, different demographics of the society that can be attracted to BAIT 15, and trying to expand, the community that we have built in the past 4 years, which is mainly, the artists, the thinkers, the writers, the curators, and expand to a wider audience and include different members of the community. And I think having such spaces become important to allow that conversation to happen, where in the current space where BAIT 15 is located, it's more of a private space by appointment, and only like few people that can just walk in to the space. So this is more a public space that we look at, and we'd like to continue doing that. So
Hashil,
there
I
are,
feel like this. this is also kind of the first step in what was always talked about is that BAIT 15 was never intended to be the sole space for the community. We
Community.
always wanted to be the first of many.
Yeah,
And I think having this little kind of drop of Beit Khamstar existing outside of the house is our first way of saying, like, look, we want to expand. We want our community members to take what they learned and what they've experienced in this specific house, and build on it outside, around the UAE and around Abu Dhabi in general.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And the fact that this is more of a public space versus like, I mean, just going to someone's villa because that's the natural um, يعني shape of the house. Like this might allow different crowd. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think we've covered everything. This is us, starting from right, Maytha Abdullah, then myself, then Zuhur, and then Afra at her show last month.
at
And
Greener.
yeah,
And thank you.
thank you for tuning in. If you want to, if you have, I want to say at the end, we are very open to open collaborations and like hear from the community. So if you have any ideas that you would like to pursue, please come forward. Please contact us through, the different channels, email, calls, or Instagram or whatever. We're very open to hear from the community and support everyone.
Thank you.
Was that like the end? We're out.
We can leave.
Thank you.